If fear of failure has you feeling stuck in a rut and unable to move forward, grab a pair of toothpicks and prop your eyelids open as wide as they can go for the duration of this video, because I would be heartbroken to find out that you missed a nanosecond of the therapist-approved secrets to overcoming fear of failure that I'm about to share. Whether you're on a high school debate team or you just like being that person at family gatherings, who maybe gets a little too deep into the sauce and is constantly getting into arguments over the existence of a higher power, I'm about to gift you the point to counter all points if you find yourself arguing against the creationists. You know creationists be like, if life wasn't created by a higher power, how do you explain sunshine? Or baby turtles? Or duck-billed platypuses? That seems like a pretty creative idea to me. And if you really want to own them on the debate stage, all you have to say is, yeah, what about fear of failure? Why would an intelligent designer create the brilliant specimen that is the human being only to bestow upon it paralyzing fear of something that's part of its fundamental nature? And then everyone will stand up and clap, with tears streaming down their faces, and the mayor will present you with the key to the city, and your better half will put their arm around you and nuzzle in uncomfortably close to your ear and whisper, "Good job, babe." Now that I've said that all out loud, I can't help but think that, yeah, what the heck? Whose bright idea was it to come up with this fear of failure nonsense? And how can we punish them for it? And while that witch hunt rages on, why don't you and I turn our attention toward the practical task of figuring out how to overcome fear of failure? Fear of failure is one of those problems that is self-explanatory on its face, but pretty complex when you start to unpack it. On the surface, it is exactly what it sounds like, the fear of failing at something. How and when and where people experience that fear can vary from person to person. It could be something you experience around a very particular task, like giving a presentation in front of your team at work, applying to do a master's degree program, or even defusing a bomb. It can also be something that you experience in the bigger picture of your life. Like anything that seems like a challenge can also feel like a ripe opportunity to fail. We'd love to hear where fear of failure shows up in your life, so drop us a note in the comments. One key feature of fear of failure that I never really hear people talk about is the fact that it almost always happens in relation to things that people ultimately want to do. Like a big part of someone might want to try out for a sports team or apply for a more ambitious job, but fear of failing at that thing is discouraging enough to convince them not to. This is a big part of what makes the fear of failure such a shitty problem, because it gets in the way of people doing things that would likely make them happier and more fulfilled in life. If you struggle with fear of failure, you probably know very well that that's really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the problems it sets in motion. It might start with a fear of failing at something, which you respond to through avoidance. Then you probably feel some combination of anxiety and despair over the fact that you want to do the thing that you're afraid to fail at, but feel paralyzed by how scary failure feels. And that's when shame shows up to the party, along with its lame friend, hopelessness. Together, they make you feel like total shit about yourself, and it's hard to see an exit on that downward spiral. But fear not, I'm here to give you some powerful tools to overcome your fear of failure and feel confident that you're not going to be sent to the gulag for getting a gutter ball the next time you go bowling. Now I'm going to tell you exactly what to do the next time fear of failure rears its stupid head. If you follow these 6 steps, it would be shocking if you don't see a huge improvement to your fear of failure over time. Step numero uno is identifying the fear at the heart of your anxiety when it shows up. When big feelings show up, especially those belonging to the family of fear, it can be hard to reflect on what they're all about. Feelings like anxiety animate us to try to get the hell away from whatever feels threatening. In order to actually understand the fear at the heart of your anxiety, take at least one big, deep breath when you recognize that you feel that way and simply ask yourself, what am I afraid of? The answer could be making a mistake, not getting it right, or failing and making a total ass of myself. Whatever it may be, just slow down so you can zero in on the fear at the center of it all. Once you identify the fear at the heart of your anxiety, it's time to unpack where that fear comes from. Human beings are generally not afraid of things for no reason. If you're afraid of failing, you must have learned that somehow, just like I learned to fear clowns at one time. To help with this process, reflect on questions like, how did you learn to fear that thing? How much of your fear of failure is based on culture, like the idea that it's shameful to declare bankruptcy? How much of your fear is based on your lived experience or trauma, like being publicly embarrassed in front of peers, or being shamed or yelled at for struggling with your homework or getting a low grade on your report card? Is never not helpful being able to identify and understand why you feel the way you feel about any given thing, and fear of failure is no exception to this. After identifying where your own particular fear of failure comes from, reflect on the advantages and disadvantages of abiding by the fear. The disadvantages probably stick out like a sore thumb. Fear of failure inspires avoidance of things that could actually make your life better and more fulfilling, and leaves you feeling like a total fucking loser. That's not awesome. But what's its purpose? Well, why do mammals, which you are, just in case no one told you, experience fear? To keep themselves safe. And safe from what? Well, the obvious answer here is failure. But what's objectively unsafe about failure, generally speaking? Nothing per se. It's all about the social responses that we could potentially experience should we happen to fail. In most cases, it's not failure itself that we're afraid of, it's the rejection or exclusion that we might be so unfortunate as to experience should we fail. It's kind of like the fear of heights. It's generally not being high off the ground that people are actually afraid of, but the fear of becoming a human pancake if you happen to fall from those heights. So, the advantage of abiding by the fear is that you avoid experiencing rejection or exclusion, which isn't even a guarantee. And the disadvantage is that you end up missing out on things that could very likely improve and enrich your life. Fear of failure leaves you feeling stuck and shitty about yourself, and that sucks, straight up. Once you've established the pros and cons of abiding by your fear of failure, it's time to identify your own personally meaningful reasons why you'd like to challenge your fear. I believe that we're far more likely to succeed at things when we have a well-established reason for doing them. So that's why this step along the process is important. To flesh this out, try asking yourself, how would your life be better if fear of failure wasn't keeping you stuck? I think it's important for your answers to this question to be very personal. But some examples could include, I would be doing certain things like going to school or pursuing a new career that bring me joy. I would be feeling more challenged in my life in a good way. Or I would feel proud of myself, knowing that I can do hard things. No matter what your reason is, identifying it will help fuel the hard but rewarding work ahead. Next, it's time to poke holes in your fear of failing. I imagine you wouldn't even be thinking about overcoming your fear of failure if part of you didn't look at that fear like, what a bunch of bullshit. So what is it about your fear of failure that makes it a bunch of bullshit? For example, if you're afraid to, I don't know, start making YouTube videos on therapy topics to try and help people on the internet. I know, so random. Because you're afraid that no one will watch them, no one will like them, and people will cyberbully you into an early grave. Part of that is understandable. You wouldn't sound like a space alien if that were the case. But what problems can you identify with that fear? Well, for starters, it assumes that all of that will happen, which it very much may not. It also fails to account for the fact that failure is very much part of the learning process. There's probably not a single goddamn thing you're good at that you didn't at least kind of suck at when you first started. You need to be able to struggle, to get better, and the fear of failure blocks you from that necessary growth process. It also fails to give you credit for your own resiliency. Maybe you make some videos and no one really watches them, and you do get some negative feedback. Is that game over? Hell no. While it may not feel amazing, you can take that feedback and take action to improve. So see how many holes you can poke in your own fear of failure and try to keep them in your back pocket. They will serve as a useful point of reference when fear of failure tries to convince you to keep your fabulous life small and unfulfilling. Okay, chances are these first 5 steps are palatable enough. Now, with this final step, things may get spicy because it's time to take action to challenge your fear. Although it would be nice if steps 1 through 5 were part of a magic spell that just takes your fear of failure away like it was all just part of a bad dream, unfortunately that's just not how fear gets resolved. The first 5 steps are designed to give you a foundation to support you in this final step. But that doesn't mean it'll be easy. And guess what? You might want to reach through the screen and poke me right in the eyeball for saying this, but that's good. Why? Because the difficulty you experience in challenging your fear of failure means that you're actually doing real work. Like a hard workout, challenging your fear of failure is very likely to leave you feeling capable and proud. And you don't have to do the thing you're scared of all in one motion. It's okay to build up to it if you need to. Steps in the right direction still count, and if you take those steps and then look in the mirror to see that you're still in one piece, you've come to terms with the fact that you are strong and resilient, and that your worst fears are very unlikely to actually come true. So take action, even if it's a baby step, because I know you got this. If this video has been helpful, give a sister a like and subscribe to Better Halves for more kick-ass content to make your mental health one less thing you need to worry about. Take care until next time.